So you love watching Rick and his pals killing walkers on AMC's Walking Dead, but did you know that it's massively different from the comics? These are the 5 biggest differences in The Walking Dead. Carol started off as a downtrodden, slightly high-strung domestic abuse survivor in her early 40s, who looks a little bit like Jamie Lee Curtis. In the face of some intense circumstances, however, Carol has become one of the show's most confident and self-assured characters, ready to kill without batting an eyelash.
Just look at the flowers, Lizzie. Just look at the flowers.
In the comic, Carol is pretty much an entirely different person. When she's first introduced, she's in her mid-20s, and though her marriage was definitely no picnic, her husband, a recent victim of suicide, was never abusive. Carol experiences a downward spiral of depression and commits suicide too, by letting a walker rip open her throat. In the comics, almost as soon as Rick and his group arrive in Woodbury for the first time, the governor maliciously chops off Rick's shooting hand as punishment for a lie Rick told him. The TV show creators considered letting Rick get his hand cut off, but they ultimately decided to let him keep it, since the logistics of staging so many complicated action sequences with a one-handed leading man seemed like a headache. They compensated by chopping off Merle's hand instead. Also, though not as interesting, Rick is from Kentucky in the comics and not Georgia like in the show. Just an offhanded observation. Too soon? In the show, Dale is sort of a goofy Hawaiian shirt-wearing dad figure to Rick's entire group, but his relationship with Andrea is particularly close. You never think it from watching the show, but in the comic books, Dale and Andrea are involved romantically. Like, really, really romantically. As Rick's best friend and deputy, Shane was already a pretty rude and obnoxious jerkbag, and the collapse of industrialized civilization only made him worse. Shane's creepy malignancy was the driving force of the show's entire first and second season, until finally things came to a head with Shane's attempt to bump off Rick. Rick was able to finesse the situation enough to buy himself time to stab Shane to death, and moments later, Carl shoots Shane's reanimated corpse. In the comic, it's Carl, not Rick, who kills Shane. And this unexpected turn of events takes place just 6 issues in. Amazingly, Darrell and his brother Merle, 2 of the show's most memorable and iconic characters, are both completely absent from the comics. Norman Reedus made a big impression on the show's producers when he auditioned for the role of Merle. In fact, they liked Reedus so much that they wanted to make sure that they included him in the project, even when the role of Merle ultimately went to Michael Rooker. So, they created an entirely new character just for him, Daryl Dixon.
I need some strategic advice on how to stop the goblin.
Just kill him.
No, he just keeps